Okay, I guess now it's a good time to call the roll, since everyone's volunteering. So I heard Cootie Brown.
Yes.
Kevin Burke. Jane Daniels.
Yes.
Jane McLaughlin.
Yes.
Elizabeth Jacks, yes.
Yes.
Cindy, yes. Don Mara is present by proxy. Mark Molinaro is present by proxy and represented by Ron Hicks. Dennis Murray is present by proxy, and is Freddie on the line? Jennifer Schwartz-Berkey is here and is your acting meeting chair. Stefan Yarbeck. And Deanie Lobu. And Bill Mazuka.
Yes. Andy Schwarm.
Okay, starting with the council. Ned Ames. Frank Rooney.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Kathleen Bukowski. Andy Chamar is here. Anthony D'Ambrosi. Victor Gilisi.
On the line.
Thank you. Dan Brown.
Welcome on board.
You bet, thank you.
OGS. Bob Elliott, yes.
Yes.
Marcel Florestal.
Present.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff. Linda Cooper from Parks.
I'm here.
Greg Helmsmortal is present via proxy. Fran Dunwell is unable to attend for DEC Commissioner Joe Martens. Sally Mazzarella, yes. No, she's present. She's unable to attend, has the flu. Chairman McHenry is here. Assemblymember Lalor. Jamie Ethier representing Secretary of State Cesar Perales.
Yes, good morning, Mark.
Stephen Saland. Linda Vonderhaat is present via proxy. Johanna Poor representing Orange County is not here. And one more, Bill Gordon representing Joe McDonald, Commissioner of DOT.
I'm here, Mark.
Thank you. And the advisory committee members, I heard Steve Rosenberg and Frank Bergman.
Yeah.
Great. Is there anyone else I missed?
Yeah, Mark, it's Kevin Burke on the line.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And Wint Aldrich is here in person, representing all of the board members in front of Greenway staff. So he's in quite the position of pressure, and he's really in the spotlight today. All right, well, that was relatively painless. I'd like to thank you all for calling in. This is our first virtual Greenway board meeting after updating the Conservancy bylaws. We are now able to transact business over the phone. It's quite exciting, and it gives us some flexibility in the wintertime to be able to keep on doing business even if the weather's not so good. So with that, I'll turn it over to the chairs, Barney and Jennifer.
All right. All I'll do is say welcome, and I hope that Kevin Burke later in the meeting will share with you all some of the good news from the Tower of Victory. Jennifer, over to you.
Wonderful, yes.
Sorry, go ahead. Morning. What did you say?
I just say over to you to say welcome or whatever you want to say.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to stand in for our usual acting chairwoman. Thank you. So I think we're going to move directly to the agenda review. Does anyone have anything to add to the agenda on either council or conservancy business?
Jennifer, this is Mark, and while I'm not a board member, I'd like to add to council business a brief discussion of the Greenway indemnity.
I'll make that motion.
The end of the council after the community grants and after okay. The indemnity, all right.
Okay, so that will be at the end of section 5.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
the last item in section 5.
Okay, and now moving on to the minutes of October 8th and January 8th. We received 3 sets, actually, of minutes to approve. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we'll now make a motion. First of all, are there any changes needed? Does anybody have any changes to the minutes? Okay. So if there are no changes to the minutes, we'll ask that there be a motion to approve all 3 minutes. And actually, I think I'm going to go ahead. Did we have a motion?
I would make that motion.
Bob Elliott and Kevin Burke.
Yes.
Oh. So that will go for all 3.
Are these conservancy or council or, well, I'm sorry, my computer is just loading so slowly.
They're,
Okay, so let me just do that then for you. It's the combined meeting of October 8th of the Greenway Communities Council and the Greenway Conservancy for the Hudson River Valley.
Okay.
And then there's also the minutes of October 8th and January 8th, the meetings of the 2 grants committees. Of the grants committees for those 2 dates. So,
This is Kitty, and I'm going to have to abstain because my computer, I don't know what's wrong with my Wi-Fi, I can't bring them up. I'm sure they're fine, but since I can't see them at the moment, I'm going to abstain.
okay, noted.
thank you very much. So, is there any other question, Barney? Did you have a question? Okay, then moving on.
Oh, you have to,
the Greenway Communities.
Jennifer?
Yes. Sorry, Mark. Mm-hmm.
The next part of this is just saying all in favor.
Sorry, excuse me.
It's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Those
Any
opposed?
opposed? Okay, and we have Kitty's abstention, so the minutes are approved. So moving on, I think, Barney, you're next with the council.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You did that really well, Jennifer. Is it calling the council meeting to order and welcome the new Dutchess County Greenway Council representative, who is CIA, and by that I mean only that he is not a spook, he's a chef. Is that true?
That's correct.
Well, Victor, we're delighted that you've joined us. Would you like to say a word or two about yourself?
And I've been part of the community in the Hudson Valley for the past 18 years. I've lived in Poughkeepsie, live now in Hyde Park, part of the CIA community. I came on board in 1998 as the Dean of Culinary Education and assumed 4 years ago the role as Vice President for Advancement and Business Development. But before, I'm a culinarian, I'm a chef, and I know what food and beverage and hospitality brings to the Hudson Valley. So much goodness in terms of what we do from an agritourism and agriculture and food and beverage perspective. So I'm delighted for the opportunity. I appreciate all the folks that were involved with the nomination to be part of the board. I know we have had some members from the CIA, Charlie O'Mara, who announced his retirement from the college, was part of the Greenway's connection. So I think this is an unbelievable opportunity to get the culinary more involved and look forward to being an active part of your committees and all that.
Thank you, Victor. We're delighted, and you were appointed by one of our super favorites, Mark Molinaro, who has supported the Greenway since birth.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ron Hicks on behalf of the county executive. I'd just like to say that Dr. Hurley is also one of the handful of certified master chefs in the world, and the county executive is honored that he's agreed to serve, and we really look forward to working with him.
Great. Very well said. Okay. All right, now, unless there's any other comments, Mark, you can start talking about the strategic plan implementation data update. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mark? Yes.
We, as a board, adopted our first strategic plan since 1995 back in October. Strategic plans are meaningless unless they actually affect change in the organization. So I'm committed in 2015 to implement two of the plan's recommendations, and one is the establishment of a development committee, which I've been working on, not as rapidly as I would like to have convened it, but that will start happening in the late winter, early spring. And also a second project that was identified as a priority for the Greenway in 2015. That's working on the Hudson River Valley Greenway Trail. I've met with the chairwoman of our Trails Committee, Jane Daniels, and we've outlined a strategy to reconvene a Trails Committee. So I will be reaching out to a number of board members seeking their participation in council as we put together that committee. We have budgeted in the National Heritage Area budget $30,000 to do a trail gap analysis. That's going to help us figure out where the potential opportunities are to make either off-road or on-road connections so we can finally say that we have a trail from New York City to Albany. So that work's going to be happening this year. It's going to be predicated on working with a lot of our partners, and I'm looking forward to working with you all on that.
Terrific, thanks.
Questions, comments? It's a great idea, Mark, and it's a wondrous thing to do. And if you can do it in 12 months, either the West Bank or the East Bank, or maybe even both, it would be a crowning achievement. It's just great. All right. Any comments at all about that? I think we all agree, Mark, that this is really worth doing, and you and Scott have worked really hard. We all know that it's not just trails on the land, but that Scott, with his marvelous water trail as well, right?
Absolutely. And Scott will be talking about that a little bit later.
All right, well then, hearing no comments, let's go into number D, Greenway Community Grants. Mark, again, we have 4.
All right, this time we have 4 applications. The projects were recommended for funding at the amount shown by the Greenway Grants Committee at their January 8th meeting. The first one is for the town of North Greenbush in Rensselaer County. This is for the development of design guidelines. The community is in a period of rapid growth. They're trying to rein in some of the worst types of development that are coming through their municipality. And they're trying to put some design guidelines in place so that their community does not become the big box mecca that it could be if they did not have design guidelines in place. So we're recommending $10,000 for that project. The next one is the Village of Green Island in Albany County for the Black Bridge Trail, Rail Trail Connection Project. The village secured a transportation improvement project funding from the MPO through the Federal Highway Administration for this project. They are working to put together their local match. Our grant fund will help them achieve their local match so that they can build this critical trail connection. This will help the Greenway Trail essentially leave Albany County and enter Saratoga County, in which we have already worked with partners to develop the Champlain Canalway Trail, which is our plan of action for the Greenway Trail in Saratoga County. This project will help fund paving, and a paved trail will make it universally accessible for everyone. Any questions or comments? The next one is to the Village of Kinderhook in Columbia County. This is for a comprehensive plan update. Comprehensive planning is critical to protecting what we value in the Hudson River Valley. The Village of Kinderhook has been our partner since 1995 when we gave them a Greenway grant to do their first comprehensive plan, embracing Greenway principles. I will note that the Grants Committee did have some concerns that the proposal that was submitted by the village excluded an examination of environmental resources from their comprehensive planning update. So the grants committee has recommended as a condition of the award that we require that the village examine environmental resources. I wholeheartedly...
Have you talked to anybody about that, Mark?
Yes, I've talked to the consultant that will be working on the plan, and who's Nan Stolzenberg, and she does a lot of small rural plans, and she's assured me that her planning process does include an examination of natural resources. What also tempers that omission is the fact that the village just adopted its previous comprehensive plan in 2008, so its statistics are relatively current. A village is relatively concentrated, and what they're planning on doing is examining the things that the 2008 plan that have changed since 2008, and examining any assumptions that were made in 2008 to see if they need to change anything. So it's truly going to be an update to their comprehensive plan, but they will and have pledged to include the environment in their analysis.
Well, our saintly Sarah Griffin is a resident of Kinderhook, and she had some comments, but we can depend on the fact that she will be watching this especially carefully, right?
Yes.
You talked to her about this.
Watching from her warm place in Florida, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And the final one is to the City of Cohoes in Albany County for Visitor Center revitalization. The City of Cohoes has one of the last visitor centers in the River Spark Heritage Area, which is a state heritage area. They recently secured a CFA grant that will help them improve the visitor experience in Cohoes, including the development of a kayak wave park in the Mohawk River, adjacent to the waterfront in Cohoes. And so our investment here will be part of that revitalization effort to spur tourism and to provide tourist orientation not only to the City of Cohoes but to the region as a whole. The Grants Committee also felt that it was a good opportunity for the Greenway, particularly to insert and include the National Heritage Area program and materials in this particular visitor center, and we'll make that suggestion to the City of Cohoes after the grant award is made. Any questions or comments?
Somebody has to say something about it.
Yes, it's Kitty. I always have something to say about everything. In this case, I'm wondering how we can connect communities like that first one, the Village of Green Island, the very first one that wants to incorporate design standards.
North Greenbush.
Okay, Greenbush. Right. I mean, we have these wonderful county compacts, which really have great recommendations for compacts. And I'm just wondering if there's, I hate to see it. This says to develop design guidelines. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we can encourage communities like this to first review the county guidelines that have been developed.
Well, I think that's always a recommendation that we make for counties that have promulgated guidelines like Dutchess County, Orange County, and I think Westchester County. But in this case, Rensselaer County unfortunately does not have design guidelines developed on a countywide basis. But I think it's a good idea, as you point out, Kitty, to share with them some design guidelines that have been developed through Greenway Compacts in other counties, because the principles that underlie good design are relatively universal and are really, can be customized to represent the particular vernacular of a municipality, but certainly we can share that with them.
Well, that's exactly what I was going for, except you said it much more eloquently. But it does seem that if they can start with some of the ones that have already been developed and then tailor them for their community, that they'll get much more use out of their development process. So that's my only comment, and I am happy to vote in support of all of these grant applications.
Great. Thanks, Kitty.
Any other comments? Anyone from Greenbush or no one lives on Green Island, do anyway, is that, of course, as we often say, at this time, if everyone, if all communities had Dutchess County background to work with, would be a lot easier. Right, Mark?
Absolutely.
So hard, so long on this. But in any event, none of them are, and the only, let's see, Columbia County, are they a part of the compact? I don't know.
They're not a part of the compact, but every community in the county is a Greenway community.
So anyway, well, let's hope some of these compacts can be completed. Is there any comments at all? What do you think about all these, Mark? You think they're all pretty good?
I think they're all pretty good. There are a couple applications that could have been better put, more elegantly put together, but I think we purposefully keep our application simple and make sure that we do our homework if we have any questions, and I think we've done that in this case.
Winter, did you read these things?
I read them with great care, provided comments that I think upon reconsideration are irrelevant, and I am very happy to move the approval of all four of these fine grants.
All right, can we have a second, please?
Ishmar, I second that motion.
Thank you, Andy. All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mark, you've done once again a great job.
Okay.
Greenway Community Grants are hereby approved, and I will turn this over to Jennifer Schwartz-Berkey. Go, Jennifer.
Before we do, I think we have one more item, indemnity.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, Mark, you had that other thing about,
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, well, I wanted to give the Greenway Council in particular an update on the case against the Greenway by the town of Rhinebeck related to the Greenway indemnity. The Greenway Council in the state of New York are being represented by the Attorney General and in the case. And what we've discovered in having read the arguments in both cases, I think the council needs to prepare to marshal an effort to have a legislative solution to the language in the law and working with the legislature to make that change happen. Because I don't think that the resolution of this particular case will change what is fundamentally flawed in the language related to the Greenway indemnity in the law. So if anybody would like to participate, either from the council or the conservancy, in that conversation with me and others in the effort to reach out to the legislature about this particular issue, please email me and I'll include you in the conversation.
Okay, now, the Court of Appeals has not ruled as yet anyway, and we've won the first two cases. So I'm perhaps more optimistic than Mark on this, but we shall see.
Well, I will say, Chairman, that even if we win, we lose, which is the catch-22 in this situation.
Is it possible to give us an idea of why that would be the case?
The briefs, and I don't want to get too specific on what the briefs and the arguments that are made, because I can't, because the briefs aren't public yet. But I'm just saying that from what I've read in the briefs, that we should be prepared to make an action to fix the language in the law.
Okay, all right.
Mark, this is...
And that was done by Steve Salans, way back when.
Yeah.
And he thought he was doing it right, but okay. We've all been warned, and you said it very well, Mark. Let's go on to the Conservancy.
Steve, did you have a comment?
Well, I just had a quick question, Mark. I'm just curious, who provides legal advice to the Greenway specifically on this issue?
In this particular case, it's the Attorney General's office.
Thanks.
They've done a crackerjack job so far.
Okay, so if we're ready to move on, I I now call the Conservancy meeting to order. The first item is Hudson River Greenway Water Trail designation, and I believe, Mark, you're going to introduce that and ask Scott to talk about it?
Sure. I'll just directly hand it over to Scott to talk about the water trail designation.
Our last gap in the water trail is between Germantown and Rhinebeck, and the village of Tivoli has a piece of waterfront property that is currently accessible but not ideal for a launch. But they have come to us, and we've worked with them to try to develop plans for that property, and they have asked for a provisional designation for when they do get access to the property that will work. So we are looking for a provisional water trail designation, which would complete the trail on the east bank, at least as far as day users are concerned.
Sounds great. Should I make that as a motion?
I'm sorry, this is Steve again, and I just wanted to point out that Scenic Hudson assisted the village in the acquisition of this property from the railroad, which had owned it previously, and although it has some challenges, that it's a place that has been informally adopted by the community over many years of use, and the village is trying very proactively to develop a strategy and a plan to make it publicly accessible in a way that is safe and attractive.
Excellent summary. Thank you, Steve.
Actually, while you're talking, Scott, why don't we go to D and then we'll go to C, and just give us an update on the water trail project.
Okay, the two big items that we're working on are creating a new website for the water trail and a map guide series of 4 maps. And I got word late yesterday that 2 of the web pages are nearly complete, and they're just looking for some pictures of each of the sites that we have. And the design of the maps is in the final process. Our comment period for our working group, which consists of paddlers, guides, outfitters, state agencies, and tourism professionals, and some environmental groups, is closed on Friday. We have all the comments. We're going to assemble those and move forward with that process.
Any questions about this? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Scott. I believe Jane McLaughlin hasn't been able to join us today. Is that
No,
right?
she's on the line.
Oh, she's on the line. Well, welcome, Jane. So Jane McLaughlin is our newest Conservancy Board member, and Jane brings with her a very impressive career at state parks, where she was responsible for some of the largest parks in the system. And, well, welcome. Do you want to say anything, Jane?
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, for those of you I haven't had the privilege of meeting, I have worked 32 years with state parks, 20 of which within the Hudson Valley, the Taconic and Palisades region. And I'm really delighted to join the Conservancy Board. I look forward to working with all of you, the Conservancy Board members, the Greenway Community Council, the parks, the talented staff, and of course with all our partners and constituents. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so on to item E, accepting the National Park Service grant for teaching the Hudson Valley.
Okay.
Mark?
So Sarah Olson, who's the superintendent of the FDR site in Hyde Park, reached out to me and asked if we, the Greenway, would host a grant from the National Park Service that would relate to their work to restore the Roosevelt vegetable garden. The money that we receive through this grant would be used to pay a consultant that would work closely with the Teaching the Hudson Valley program and Debbie Duke to spread, to help figure out how best to use that project of the restoration of the garden and turning it into sort of an agro-education project. Teaching the Hudson Valley program last year in their Teachers Institute focused on farms and food, and they have really great experience on using or thinking about how we can connect curriculum and connect people to learning through agricultural initiatives. This one at the Roosevelt site connects with history and connects with agriculture, and it points towards sustainability in the future. And I think it's going to be a good project for us to be a part of, and it's going to be create minimal work for Scott to administer the grant.
Okay. Okay, great. Is this where is there a vote required on this, Mark, or was this actually on the previous item?
No, we can take a vote on both the water trail designation and accepting this grant.
This is Kevin Burke, and I would like to make that first motion.
And
I'd like
this
to
is,
second that. I'm Cindy Lanzetta.
and this is Steve Rosenberg once again, and I just wanted to, for the record, note that I am married to Debbie Duke, but I also am a non-voting advisory member, so I will not participate in this.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm sorry, I should have asked if there were any comments or discussion before we took the vote. Is there anything else from anyone?
I'd like to make a comment. This is Jane Daniels. I'm down here in Westchester. We have a very successful algae facility that does agri-education called Hilltop Hanover Farm and Environmental Center. I highly approve of what they're trying to do there at Roosevelt building that garden. I think it's going to be something to get the kids interested in food, because most of them think food from the grocery store.
Great,
All right,
thank you.
this is Wint. As the treasurer of the Roosevelt Vanderbilt Conservancy, Jane, trying to raise the money to do that with Mrs. James Roosevelt's great garden. I'm very grateful to hear your comment.
Terrific. So then I guess we should move forward with the vote. Did I hear someone else who wants to chime in?
Yeah, obviously, the Department of Agriculture and Markets is very pleased.
Yeah, I think this is obviously a direction that a lot of these things are moving in. We've been working with Paige in Kingston on urban agriculture zoning, and it's really taking off in the Hudson Valley. Okay, so we have the vote. We have the motion. We have the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have the note from Steve regarding his advisory role. Any other abstentions? Okay, so I think the motion passes. So I think we're on to the last item on the Conservancy agenda, which is the Greenway Link study.
I'm going to just mention quickly the item F, the Trails Committee. I mentioned it briefly before, but Scott and myself met with Jane Daniels to think through about the best strategy to reestablish a vibrant Greenway Trails Committee. There are many challenges involved in doing that, but I think we have a good strategy, and you'll be hearing more from me soon as we roll out that convening. Parallel to reestablishing the Trails Committee, I'm currently working with the DEC, New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, the New York Natural Heritage Trust, to do an inventory of existing GIS data layers related to trails, not just Greenway trails, but rail trails, rights-of-way, and other things, so that we can start. We have the tools that we need. We have the materials that we need to have to start the analysis for our gap study. So more to come on that. And finally, the Hudson River Valley Greenway Link Study. The link study is essentially a feasibility study to connect the Hudson River waterfront greenway in Manhattan to the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail in Westchester County through the Bronx. This plan was shepherded by NIMTIC, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Metropolitan New York City. They began the planning process in, I believe, 2008. Beth and myself participated in the early meetings. And the plan includes reasonable routing from the Henry Hudson Bridge through Riverdale and connecting to the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail. Locally, there is some opposition to the plan from the residents of Riverdale, who think it's insane that people should be using their sidewalks for a recreational trail. And also on the other end of the spectrum of people that believe that the only place for a Greenway trail in the Bronx is along the railroad tracks along the river. So just wanted to give you an update on that because it essentially is a plan of action to make the connection between Manhattan and Westchester County in the Greenway Trail.
Any questions about this from anyone? Okay, well, I think that concludes our Greenway Conservancy portion of our program. So I think we're moving on now to Section 7, the National Heritage Area. Barney, did you want to say a word?
Well, I think we all know, and it's worth repeating. And you barking in the background, is it there are two ladies who have saved for us once again the National Heritage Area. First is Nita Lowy, who's been a supporter of the Greenway and the Heritage Area for a great many years, and our junior senator too. So to those two ladies, a particular thanks, and of course I believe, Mark, the entire constituency of the Congress members in the Greenway area voted in favor of this, and so we're delighted that the Heritage Area is alive. And at this time last year, I don't think we were so sure about that, right, Mark?
We were not, and the Heritage Area funds that we received from the National Park Service really provide the Greenway with half of the money that we have for staff salaries and programming. So it would have been a significant loss not to continue to have the funding authorization and this funding from the National Park Service.
So if you see Nita Lowy, say hello and thank you, please. Now let me see, what do we have, Mark, that we need to do with development? We've got,
yeah, just a reminder for the 2015 Heritage Development Grants. They're funded through the National Heritage Area. It's a $50,000 grant program. Applications are due on February 6th.
Next, for marketing, promotion, or interpretation.
Marketing, promotion, or interpretation. Information on the grant applications can be found on the Greenway's website or the National Heritage Area's website, HudsonRiverValley.com.
Great.
and Mark, this might be an appropriate time for you to mention the addition to the family of the Greenway.
Sure. Well, for the first time, I think since 2002, Beth Campachero is not attending our board meeting today, even with us here in Albany, because I think joyfully she has had twins. So she is home with her twins, and both they're fraternal twins. Both of them are progressing well, and the new parents are also adjusting to their new life as parents. But we send our best wishes to Beth and Mike and their family.
And one is to be called council and the other conservancy.
Yes.
Hudson and River.
Mark?
Yes.
For the fraternal twins, was it two of each or a boy and a girl?
A boy and a girl.
A boy and a girl.
So Jane, that's a blue hat and a pink hat.
No, just a sweater and a pink sweater.
Okay, sweaters. That's right.
Okay? In fact, surprise, I'm knitting while I'm attending this meeting.
Of course.
Wear your headset.
Okay, Mark, is there anything else?
Just two things really quick. We finally have the final Ramble statistics in this year. I won't go over them individually. I will just remind the board that according to a 2012 economic impact study, the Ramble generates $21 million in the region's economy each year. And that is really the result of all the partner organizations and the activities that they contribute to the Ramble. And that's a significant figure that we point to. Also, we're updating HudsonRiverValley.com. We received about 15 proposals to redo the website. We narrowed that list down to 5. We interviewed 5 firms, and we have selected Rocket Creative to redo our HudsonRiverValley.com website.
They are located where?
They're located outside of Utica, New York. New Hartford. If you'd like to see a sample of the work that they've done, you can see MohawkValleyHistory.com. And that's all I have.
Okay. And Jennifer, do you think there's anything else we should add in?
No, I think we're done with this section, unless anybody has any questions.
We don't need any motions or anything else. Mark, you can talk about this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I don't think so. That's all I was saying.
Okay. This logo, which is, well, you go ahead and explain, Mark.
Okay. Well, the state released comprehensive branding guidelines, and each agency in the state needs to conform to the guidelines. We've attached our new Greenway logo to the board packet, and it's also on top of the meeting agenda. And over time, we will phase out the use of our old flag logo for the Greenway and adopt this logo. Each agency needs to use the New York State of Opportunity and outline of the state of New York on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, the agency's name is included there. So agencies that are in the environmental portfolio, like the Greenway, the Department of Environmental Conservation, Office of Parks, all get to use that nice green color. Other agencies in economic development get to use other colors. But these branding guidelines not only govern the new logo, but they go as far down to our email signatures, website design, PowerPoint presentations. So we will be rolling out different changes to the various things over time. Any questions?
Yes, that includes type fonts that you use?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the type font offhand?
The type font is Proxima Nova. We do not have Proxima Nova in any of our systems, so the alternative, if you don't have the font that they recommend, is Arial.
My understanding is that they actually created the font specially for this. That's why it's not in the standard font list.
Gotcha.
All right. Okay, well now, that logo is, we don't vote on this. This was a state said this is what it has to be. Mark, you want to do your report, please?
Sure. I think the chairman already touched on one of the major things that happened this past year, and that was the reauthorization of the Hudson Valley National Heritage Area. We're pleased that we have universal and uniform support from our congressional delegation, both Republicans and Democrats supporting the work of the Heritage Area and fighting on behalf of the Heritage Area in Washington. So we're very pleased about that. The other big news in 2014 is obviously the development of and the adoption of our strategic plan. That's going to be a guide for us moving forward, not only this year, but for many more years to come. Please feel free to, review my annual report, perhaps for some light reading when you're trying to drift off to sleep. But it does encapsulate all the work that we do and have done with our partners this past year. And looking forward to 2015, as I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on the Development Committee, the Trails Committee, and the gap analysis, in addition to the other work that we're doing. That has been mentioned already. That's all I have.
This is Wayne Aldrich. Let me ask, going back to what Barney was saying about our gratitude to Senator Gillibrand and Assemblywoman or Congresswoman Lowy, and the rest of the delegation, for that matter, are we telling these folks in a very concise way, but a very heartfelt way, what we do and how grateful we are to them for enabling us to continue doing it? It'd be nice if we were able to express this in a fashion that they could in turn put into their own constituent reports, or at least make them feel particularly good about their commitment.
That's a great idea. me is that there's one thing that Anita Lowy actually reviews all of the comments that come to her office. One of her many strengths. But if those of you who are listening and care to, letters to the senator and the congresswoman would be, I think, much appreciated.
And
Wouldn't that be right, Wendy?
Yes.
We certainly can provide the material, and over the years I've developed relationships with Nita Lowy's office and Senator Gillibrand's office, and before any hearing they always reach out to me for the information that they need, which is I'm proud of that relationship. I'm also going to be going down to Washington, D.C. from February 2nd through the 5th, and on the 4th I'll be meeting with members of our congressional delegation with the Washington, D.C. Legislative lead for the governor, talking about the heritage area and what we do and why the federal money is such a good investment.
That's great. It's great that you're tying it in with the governor's office in Washington, because it's very important not to get in any way separate from that.
One thing I'd also like to mention that's in my executive director's report is that the Greenway's founding treasurer, Ken Herman, stepped down this year. Ken was the treasurer for the Greenway since the inception of the Greenway. He has overseen sound finances in both good times and bad. I can't count the number of clean audits that the organization has received under his leadership as treasurer. And so I'd just like to personally recognize Ken and his contribution to the Greenway Conservancy.
Well said.
Yeah, and I would just like to add my grateful appreciation to Ken. I think he was, as you say, one of the very first members appointed to the Conservancy, and he guided us through some very rocky financial and just the issues that arise when a new organization is finding its way, and he had such a clear vision and steady hand on our rudder, and I would also like us to send him a letter expressing our appreciation.
Will do.
All right, now let me see. Any other business?
Yeah, this is Kevin Burke. Barney, picking up on your comment at the start of the conversation, I wanted to just update the team on how we're doing with the Tower of Victory project in Newburgh, which is really a wonderful project to restore the observation deck atop the Tower of Victory that stands outside of Washington's headquarters in Newburgh overlooking the Hudson, which was basically dedicated at the end of the 19th century, the centennial of the Revolution, as a symbol of peace. And unfortunately, the observation deck was damaged in a terrible storm early in the 20th century, and it's kind of, for many, many years, laid there without any ability to go up and see that wonderful view, and we're going to change that now. The project itself cost $1.6 million, which is a pretty steep price. But amazingly, we only have $65,000 to go at this point, because in December, Governor Cuomo and the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council and the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation threw their support behind the project by awarding it $500,000. So it's an extraordinary development in December, and we're now under $1,000. I mentioned, I think it's about $60,000 to go, $59,000 to go. So I think that we'll probably wrap this up, this campaign, sometime early this year. And I think it'll be really, really exciting. And this is something, Barney, that you care a lot about. It's one of your signature projects. And when it opens up, when that work is completed, and people can go to Newburgh and climb up that Tower of Victory and see that wonderful vista, it really will be a wonderful companion to the walkway over the Hudson down at Newburgh. So thanks for all those who have supported the effort so far, and please keep us in your thoughts as we move into 2015.
You said that beautifully, Kevin.
Wonderful. I have a similar announcement with Jennifer. As some of you may know, I've been working with many Ulster County communities while I was executive director of Planning Ulster County, and following And one of the projects I worked on for the last few years was the sale of the complete canal house to the B&H Canal Historical Society. And we finally prevailed with the CFA this year and won a $500,000 grant from Parks. We're very grateful for that. It was also announced in December to turn this historic restaurant, which is also one of the most historic buildings probably in Worcester County, which is the Canal House that sits right on the B&H Canal, and actually was built before the canal itself, to become the new headquarters of the B&H Canal Historical Society and Museum, as well as a hub for agro and cultural tourism activity. So we're going to be moving forward with that with the help of OXI, which provided the match grant. And I'm happy to talk to everybody about that if they want to learn more. Great. And thank you, Liz, by the way, for your support and others who have been working with us on this.
Any other comments from the council, conservancy, heritage area, or public? Okay, hearing none. Mark, you have noted the upcoming board meetings, March 11th, June 10th, and October 14th. And unless we have any other questions, comments, we will adjourn.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.